Good morning and welcome to the National Newspaper Publishers Association's Let It Be Known. Minnesota has become the latest state to restore voting rights to convicted felons, and the state is restoring those rights immediately after an individual leaves prison. We will have details. Also, a newly released investigative podcast revealed that the FBI paid a felon to infiltrate Denver's Black Lives Matter protest in 2020 following the death of George Floyd, who was killed, of course, in Minneapolis. And in Tennessee, officials in the state's largest county, which includes Memphis, where Tyree Nichols was killed, voted on Wednesday to study reparations for descendants of enslaved people, adding to a growing list of local and state governments that are considering or are launching similar programs. We discussed all that this morning with the Africa crew, Barrington Salmon and Austin Cooper. Good morning, guys, wherever you are.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
Look at this. This is incredible. Barrington started a trend. So we all decided to grab something African. Now, I got mine when I was in Malawi. Where'd you get yours from, Austin?
In Benin last summer.
Benin. And Barrington?
I have no idea.
You have no idea.
I get stuff from Ghana, and anywhere that Mimi and I go, we go to African stores and get things we like. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Mimi always showing off that taste of hers, huh?
Oh yeah.
Without question. Let me tell you something. Before we get into it, I have to share this. So yesterday, something incredible happened yesterday. You will not believe it. So I picked up my daughter, my 16-year-old from school, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot of traffic. It's a traffic jam. They're doing construction by the school, and it's a school zone, so you got to go like 10 miles an hour. So and the light changes real fast. So we approach the light, and we're behind this white car, and next to us is the state police. And it's a beautiful day, 70 plus degrees. And the state police guy, he motions for me to roll my window down. He's to my left, and the white car is in front of me. And he goes, "Excuse me." He says, "Can you do me a favor?" And Paris and I, my daughter, we are thinking, okay, what's going on here? Do me a favor. First of all, I'm not doing you no favors. But secondly, so he goes, when the light turns, would you mind? This is how he said it too. Would you mind if I got in front of you? Because I want to pull that car over in front of you.
Oh, wow.
I was like, oh, so
Really?
I looked and I'm like, so why is he pulling this car over? And it was obvious why he was pulling the car over. The tags were expired and there was a busted tail light. Now here's the catch. So I said I agreed to it because of who was in the car. It was a white woman in the car. Now if it was a black guy, Barrington was in that car. My car would have, because he couldn't move unless I moved.
Yeah.
My car would have suddenly malfunctioned. In other words, it was a black man. I got to tell you that. It's the way things are now. That's what would have happened.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, officer. I can't start it. But
that's okay, because both of you would
protect our own.
Both of you would have gotten the ticket. That's all.
Look, malfunction. Nothing I can do about it.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Guys, officials in Tennessee's largest county, which includes Memphis, voted Wednesday to study reparations for descendants of enslaved people, adding to a growing list of local and state governments that are considering or are launching similar programs. The Shelby County resolution will allocate $5 million to study and find actionable items addressing 5 key areas: increased access to affordable housing and ownership, home ownership, healthcare parity, criminal justice reform, enhanced career opportunities, and financial literacy and generational wealth. $5 million. And then the Republican who voted against it was like, where are we going to get $5 million for a study? So my answer, and I'll let you guys go, Barrington and Austin, is okay, don't do the study. Just start by giving them putting $5 million somewhere where the black community can benefit. I mean, that's just like a little drop in the bucket, but you know what? That's where you want to, if you want to complain about the $5 million, that's where you go. Austin.
Well, good, and commend the legislative body in that state. Certainly long overdue. I mean, like you, I get a bit frustrated with white folk who think they are doing us a favor, by putting money into yet another study commission to study the obvious, the long-term still impact of slavery on Black Americans in the United States. I was just looking up in the last Congress, the 117th Congress, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, a CBC member from Houston, introduced House Resolution 40. It's a commission to study and develop reparations proposals for African Americans Act. It was introduced on April 14th of 21. It was referred to the House Committee on the Judiciary, and there it sat for the remainder of the Congress. To my knowledge, this bill has not been reintroduced in the new Congress, the 118th Congress, yet by the Congresswoman.
You know what it is, Stacey? In my mind, Austin, all this is just them trying to play out the game. I mean, nobody needs a microscope. Nobody needs any instruments to see what the effect of slavery, segregation, de jure, Jim Crow, and all of this stuff has had, the impact it's had on African people in this country. This is a waste of time and a waste of money. And it's just a way for them to act like, see, we're doing something and nothing's going to happen.
And we aren't doing really doing anything. Exactly.
So,
exactly.
I'm not impressed.
Yeah, I can't help but agree. Run out the clock, right? Just run out the clock. Power 96 says, tell that Jim Crow Republican it is the same place where he gets $5 million to build a prison.
Yeah. And it's interesting because when House Bill 40, when they had the hearings, they had a whole bunch of folks, scholars and business people and just a wide range of people from around the country who came to speak on it, authors and educators and that type of thing. And I just shook my head because they have spent a lot of time on this. And what made me just kind of shake my head is that it, like Austin said, it's a study.
A study.
And the fight that Sheila Jackson Lee and her allies got just to have the hearing gives you every indication of how resistant these folks are to the truth. When they asked Mitch McConnell, whose ancestors on both sides were slaveholders, he said reparations is a waste of time, and anyway, we gave you Barack Obama, so what else do you want? Right? So this is the game they play.
If Barack Obama was the reparations, he was the mule from the 40 acres, right? He was only the mule. We didn't get the 40 acres.
For sure.
Exactly.
Because and it's funny because I've seen figures that are saying that if America was to pay reparations, it would be about $14 trillion. But for me, it makes no sense for Africans in this country to get reparations unless they have the institutions that would be able to take full advantage of it. If I get $1 million for reparations and I put it in Bank of America or Wells Fargo, that doesn't help me. That's me just giving my money to white people.
Exactly.
So
that's a great point.
Yeah, it's true. Until we have Black banks and Black businesses and Black institutions where we can go back to the time during segregation when our money circulated more than once in the community, then it's a waste of time. Yeah. All we're going to do is give our money back to these people.
Good point.
It was I'm sorry, it was Commissioner Mick Wright, a Republican, who voted against the resolution.
Of course, Republican.
Yeah. And when the Congress or state or local legislative bodies want to put money into anything, it is done quickly. Most congressional appropriations are not done as a result of any national commission or study. Yeah. It is a legislative act and it is signed into law by the president. It's a very can be a very simple process. So, like Barrington, another study. Okay. And, we mentioned President Obama, obviously the first Black president, served 2 terms. I'm not aware that President Obama did anything on reparations during his term.
He was against it, Austin. He said it wasn't a good idea.
So I thought so. I thought so. I wasn't certain.
The thing is,
he said it wasn't a good idea.
Well, why isn't it a good idea? Do you remember why he said it wasn't a good idea?
No, I don't. But I'll go look. But that was something.
Well, it wasn't a good idea. It wasn't a good idea politically.
Mike V. By the way, Mike V. does mention. I was trying to think of that, Mike. We do have a few Black banks. One United is the biggest Black bank in the country.
We need more.
Oh, it's true. It's true.
We can't have the Obama. What's her name? Oprah Winfrey, Michael Jordan thing, with only one other thing. We got to have a whole bunch of different banks and financial institutions and all of the mechanisms and instruments that would generate and hold our wealth. Yeah, and I'm not at all disparaging the folks like Nkiti Taifa and Dr. Ron Daniels and even the Congress lady for
Sheila Jackson
Lee and John Conyers, all of those folks who for decades have been fighting for the right to reparations. I'm not at all disparaging that. All I'm saying is that what these folks do is, and it's no surprise that it's some. I think it's just an election year ploy. They want to be able to put down this marker and say, "Look what I did. I love Black people. Vote for me."
except the one Republican, yeah.
Right. So
there's also Carver Bank too. Monique Daniels mentions, right. Yes. Carver.
Okay.
Yeah. But this has been other places, Boston, Massachusetts, and those officials there in Boston this month appointed 10 members to its new reparations task force created to study the lasting impact of slavery in Boston. The city did formally apologize last June for its role in the transatlantic slave trade. Evanston, Illinois, also with a form of a commission to study reparations. I believe Evanston is where they're
giving people money. They're giving people money to repair homes and to buy homes.
That's the first step.
Asheville, North Carolina, St. Paul, Minnesota, and other municipalities.
California just finished a study.
California became the first state. They adopted a law paving the way for descendants of enslaved people to receive reparation.
No. Descendants of Africans, of Americans. Because they were talking about descendants of just Black, of Africans generally, and they said no.
Right, they said no. Right,
they narrowed it to African Americans who can trace their ancestry to enslaved people.
Yeah,
and these bills, these bills are being introduced, my brothers, as we all know, at a time when DeSantis and other governors and elected officials across the country are actively promoting and taking books off the shelf that teach exactly this, why there is a need for reparations in the United States.
Yeah. Well,
we have been in a war for a long time. I call it low intensity guerrilla warfare.
Yeah.
They do not stop trying to find ways to dismantle everything that is of consequence to Black people.
Mike V says he's in Boston and he sat in on that press conference. Congresswoman Presley was instrumental behind those efforts there in Boston. Have you guys been to Boston?
No, I
not recently. Not recently.
Barrington refuses to go to Boston.
Let me tell you, I came to the United States in 1976, and one of the first images I saw was the front page of Jet magazine, where these white boys with a flag took it and assaulted a Black man when they were fighting against desegregation and busing.
Yeah, busing, 76.
That image was seared in my brain.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I saw a documentary recently.
David said that happened in Roxbury. David Youngblood.
Roxbury, yeah. But I saw a documentary where all of these athletes, Black athletes, were talking about their treatment when they would go to Boston to play. And then Bill Russell, I saw his documentary, but I had known from before that some people vandalized his house and defecated in his house. I was like, why would I give them my money? I've had the opportunity to go, and I've never been.
Wow.
I've gone. No, I've gone to Boston. I had an uncle who lived there. I've done the history trail. I spent the summer of getting old now. Jesus, I spent the summer of '84 studying at the Kennedy School of Government. So I've gone to Boston. Nice, beautiful city, but there is a history, a very bad history where it comes to Black people in Boston that is not often spoken of.
Yeah.
Mike V again writes in that the Black Economic Council of Massachusetts is also infrastructure for the Massachusetts Public Bank that is going to open up opportunities to Black and brown folks in ways we haven't seen before. So we'll be watching that. That's for sure. We're going to move on to Minnesota, where the Minnesota Senate moved this week to restore voting rights to convicted felons as soon as they get out of prison, instead of continuing to require them to complete their parole before they can cast a ballot. The Senate approved the Restore the Vote bill less than a week after the Minnesota Supreme Court upheld the state's current restrictions and left it up to lawmakers to change them. So this is another area where people feel like change, it has been needed. We're starting to see some momentum there. Barrington, this is important, right?
This is very important because if you look at the numbers, they're saying like about 6 million people who serve time, primarily Black and brown people, have been denied the right to vote. And it's so interesting to me because all of this is connected. I believe that the mass incarceration problem we have has been a way for white people in this country to disenfranchise Black people and remove competition from jobs and other opportunities. And when you've served your time, in most cases, they tell you can't vote. That's another way for them to restrict us and hold power. So this, to me, is very important. And I hope a whole bunch of other states start doing this as well.
Yeah, and Austin, with this, the difference between what Minnesota is doing is that it's immediate. Other jurisdictions that have done this, you had to go through some process, filling out some paperwork, doing meeting certain criteria, which in a lot of cases, because when these returning citizens come home, they really don't have the wherewithal, time, the resources to go through the process, and so they don't have those rights restored to them. In this case, it's soon as they walk out the cell, they are restored.
And that's exactly, and that's how it should be for these young men and women. It goes to what Barrington was said. Disenfranchising our people directly, and in this case, directly. You have to look at those who serve time as human beings. For many of us, well, I'll speak for me. I've had family members who have been incarcerated, and one in particular, I would go and visit him every other month. And when I drove to the prison, I was cussing up a storm driving, and internally, I was just pissed because he should not have been there.
Yeah.
But he was a family member, and I wanted to give him support. And inevitably, gentlemen, when I got there, go through the process of humiliation. You gotta, empty your pockets and go through all of it just to get in. Then you go into this large room, and they call in these prisoners with their loved members. And when my loved member would come out, all of that anger that I felt would immediately leave me. And we would have some really good conversations.
Yeah.
And you look around the room, and
it's all us.
This was in New Jersey, and it was
all us.
99% us.
Yeah.
blacks and and Latinos. Every now and then you saw you saw a white person there, but it was majority us. We talk about the right to vote when you leave prison, and it should be granted. You have done the time, you have fulfilled your obligations to the state, and now you should be granted that right of all Americans, the basic right to vote. But here we have, but here we have I mean, who voted last November? Was the man who caused an insurrection, who tried to overturn the United States government.
Yeah.
Donald Trump. Nobody is talking about taking away Donald Trump's right to vote.
Yeah, that's true. And while we're focusing on Florida, I think 2, maybe 3 years ago, formerly incarcerated individuals and their allies were able to get Amendment 4 on the ballot. 64% of the people who voted to allow felons to vote. And the first thing that Ron DeSantis did was say that unless you paid all of what you owed, fines and sanctions, to the government, you couldn't vote. And they basically dismantled what should have been a free and easy thing for people to do. And it's just a reminder of how much a piece of shit Ron DeSantis is, and how racist he is, and just intent. He's just one of them short boys who's a bully. I'm sure they were kicking his ass when he was in school.
Exactly.
He has some power. That's what he's doing.
Payback.
Yeah.
Yep.
A couple of things. Mike V says in Vermont, all incarcerated persons can vote. The state is 99% white. And Power 96 says, I teach GED classes in a Texas prison, and the restoring of voting rights after he or she finishes their prison sentence is a top priority.
Are they allowed to vote in Texas once they finish?
Yeah, we're gonna have to get that answer from you, Power 96. Barrington asked a question there. We'll get that answer. I'm sure he will let us know.
Yeah.
But in Denver, guys, David Youngblood says absolutely not, Barrington. In Denver, a newly released investigative podcast revealed that the FBI paid a felon to infiltrate Denver's Black Lives Matter protests in 2020 following the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis. Journalist Trevor Aronson produced the podcast Alphabet Boys, which details how the FBI allegedly used Michael Adam Windecker II to target Black activists and coerce them into joining a plot to assassinate Colorado Attorney General Phil Weiser. Power 96, by the way, says, yes, you are allowed to vote in Texas afterwards, Barrington.
Thank you.
But this story is no surprise, right?
Nope.
And in this, they tried to get him to join a plot to kill the Colorado Attorney General, allegedly to try and kill the Attorney General. But we've heard this story, nothing new under the sun, right?
We talked about this last week.
Mm-hmm.
The FBI are not our friends. The so-called Justice Department is not our friends. If you need a clearer indication of just how skewed the system is, Donald Trump is walking around free.
Exactly.
All the rest of them pricks who plotted insurrection in Congress, they're walking around. But if I go into a store and steal a loaf of bread, I'm going to go to prison forever. The FBI, local law enforcement, they, as I said, they have been surveilling Black Lives Matter activists, other social justice activists. They've been infiltrating them. They've been monitoring their social media, and they're always trying to find ways to get them caught up in some criminal thing so they can talk about how that the Black Lives Matter is a bunch of criminals.
Yep, they have been involved. I mean, they've been. I'm sorry, Barrington.
I was mentioning Austin. This guy told the Creole. He said, "I had to get this guy this gun because if I didn't get this guy this gun, he's got my information. He's got my family's information." So they were frightened. They felt like they had to do what the FBI told them to do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They have, to Barrington's point, the FBI has never been a friend of the Black community. The white lady from Detroit, Michigan, who died on the night after the conclusion of the Selma Montgomery March, Viola Luiso, was shot and killed by an FBI informant. That was not the Klan. That was an FBI informant who killed her. The FBI was involved in, I believe, in the assassination of John F. Kennedy. This November will be 60 years since the assassination. Why is it that all of the files related to the assassination still cannot be released? Because it's going to show that our own government, I believe, played a role in the assassination of an American president. The FBI was involved in, as I mentioned on a show last week, in Dr. King, a man of peace.
Yeah.
His last march was disrupted by violence in Memphis, Tennessee, a week before his assassination, because of FBI infiltration.
Yeah.
Well, this guy, FBI guy, Michael Adam Windecker II, he had everyone in fear. This gentleman tells the griot about Windecker. He says, everyone I talked to described how they were deathly afraid of him. He had pictures of dead ISIS fighters on his phone. Windecker spoke of having killed people. He had a criminal history that was violent. And so people that got close to him were afraid to back away from him, in part because they were fearing physical harm from him. And so this is who the FBI allegedly used in the to infiltrate Black Lives Matter in Denver.
So has the FBI come out and said anything?
FBI in the griot's story had no comment.
Of course not. They can all go to hell.
And let's remember that, today, February 24th, 2023, the FBI building is still named for one of the biggest racists in history, J. Edgar Hoover.
Yeah. And there have been efforts to get them to change it, Austin, but you can't change who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And in the same way that we talked the other day about Woodrow Wilson, who was a vile, dirty racist, and they got the bridge named after him. They got I think they have some schools named after him and all that type of stuff. So we can't pretend that we don't know the way that these people think.
Correct.
Well, again, you mentioned that COINTELPRO, which we all know well about. And so that tells you what? It tells you that it continues. This type of behavior continues, just like all this other stuff we see. We've been talking about Mississippi. You mentioned this situation in Roxbury, Massachusetts from the 70s.
Yeah.
All this stuff continues, right?
Yeah. And all what we as conscious, decent human beings need to understand is that this racist capitalist system just shapeshifts. Look at what happened after George Floyd's murder. They had, I think they're saying, between 15 and 20 million people around the world, including in 2,000 cities and towns in the United States, protested. And while people were protesting and all these corporations giving all this money and resources to assuage their guilt, the DeSantises and those types were plotting how to undermine all what we're seeing with January 6th, with all of these white militias and all of these extremist groups. All of that, the anti-CRT, all of this is a backlash to what happened with George Floyd. So those people that run around saying that America at some point is going to come to its senses and do the right thing, that's garbage.
It's amazing you say,
unless you put these mothers in a headlock and wrestle them to the ground. They're not going to do it willingly.
Yeah, it's amazing you say it's their response to George Floyd, as if George Floyd did something wrong.
Oh, of course. Well, look, Stacey, every time that they kill somebody, they say it's Stacey's fault, it's Austin's fault, it's Barrington's fault while they're dead. They always blame the victim. And then they assassinate you twice because they kill you physically, and then they kill your character.
Reputation-wise,
exactly. On drugs. It's some garbage, but it's the same play that they make every time that they do this to people.
As if there is some, correlation. George Floyd may or may not have done drugs, but here's what we know. During that 9 minutes, he was not on drugs. During that 9.5 minutes, he was not resisting arrest. During that 9.5 minutes, he was begging for his life until he lost consciousness.
And it goes on. The beat goes on and on and on, and the opportunities continue to have presented itself. If there were going to be serious, if people were serious about change would have occurred.
I just saw a clip this morning with James Baldwin I think it was in the 70s, and he said, how long? He said, I'm almost 60. They told my parents to wait. They told me to wait for progress, and nothing's changed. It's some bull, bruh.
Well, Power 96 is quoting H. Rap Brown. He said, if America doesn't come around, we are going to burn it down.
Of course.
That's Barrington's mantra anyway, right?
That's right. Exactly. I'm like, who said that? Barrington?
No, but the thing is that J. Edgar Hoover, the Department of Justice, the Alphabet Boys have done a really good job of scaring those who would seek to pursue their freedom from doing so. Because Peter Tosh always said, everybody wants to see Jesus, but nobody wants to die. Nobody wants to do the work. Nobody wants to do whatever it takes for us to get our freedom, because nobody wants to die. And they because it's easy. They either kill you, or they neutralize you, or they find something, because they'll find something. Oh, he likes drugs, he likes children, she likes whatever, and they use that to neutralize you. Because there are a lot of folks in the public sphere that say that they're leaders and do things that are leaders, and they're effective for a minute, and then after a minute they're quiet. And you wonder why. I mean, I'm convinced that certain folks went to Obama and said, if you do XYZ, we're going to kill you and all your family. I'm convinced.
Well, let me ask you a question, Austin. You worked on the Hill. You know a lot, or know and knew a lot of lawmakers on Capitol Hill. What's your take on what Barrington is saying, as far as why many will say, and at first, in some cases, they'll be really full steam ahead. We're gonna do this, and then all of a sudden, there's nothing. What's your take on that?
I mean, I agree with Barrington, unfortunately, with his comment regarding the very direct threats on President Obama and his family. Look, I'm a big fan of President Obama, was certainly during his administration and remains so now. But I got to be honest with you. When I think of what President Obama, during his 8 years in office, did that only benefited Black people, that I could say is ours, reparations or whatever, I'm honestly hard pressed. I can talk broadly on legislation that benefited African Americans and all Americans. The Affordable Care Act comes to mind, but when he first got into office, the economy was in a desperate tailspin because of spending habits and practices by the Bush administration and the Republican-led Congress. So he took effective steps to save the economy. that benefited Black people. But again, I am hard pressed to point to anything specifically that I can say, yeah, he did that for Black people. Those of our brothers and sisters who are gay, you know, they got the Marriage Equality Act.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Which, you know, which they should have gotten. I fully support anybody marrying who they want to marry, not based on race or sexual orientation, etc.
But here's the thing, Austin. The problem I think we have is that when white boys come in, they don't have to tell you that they're going to take care of white people's interests.
Exactly.
They do it.
Exactly.
But every time that you have Black people coming into a position of leadership, I can't tell you how many times I've been in government offices or in businesses, and the white people come in and they sit on Black people's head. And when Black people take the position, they say, I'm going to be fair. I'm going to deal equally with everybody. And I'm like, what the hell? Who do we have who's our champions? When Obama came in, Obama made it clear that he was the president for all Americans.
All the people.
When he said that, I was like, well, shit, Black people ain't going to get nothing.
And he had to do that or he wouldn't have gotten elected.
Well, he had to do a whole bunch of things or he wouldn't have gotten elected. So we don't know what he gave up or what he was willing to do to get to where he got. Because, hey, anybody who rises to those levels, they ain't angels.
Exactly.
So we don't know. We don't know what he had to give to get to be allowed to become president. And one more thing. Sorry to cut you. This is just an indication of whether or not Africans in this country want to continue to be a part of this dirty system or break off and do something different. Because Martin Luther King in 1967 said he feared that he was bringing Black people into a burning building. And that was 1967.
Wow. I never heard that quote.
Well, David Youngblood, let me just highlight David and Mike V's comments on Obama. David said Obama got done what he could get 218 votes for. And he says he couldn't just as now get anything that was, quote, exclusive to Black people. Exactly. And Mike V says Obama was instrumental in creating predominantly Black institutions and aimed at empowering Black men as Black men have the highest enrollment in community and technical colleges. And David finishes by saying, look at Jackson. Those state legislators found a way around the Jackson residents' freedom.
But I don't agree, because for the first 2 years of Obama's presidency, he had all of them. He had the House, the Senate, and the presidency, and he didn't do anything.
Nothing. Well, we had Benny Thompson tell us what did Benny Thompson tell us? That Joe Biden has done more for Black people than any other president in history.
Yeah. But the fact of the matter is that when you look at these folks that are supposed to be our leaders, the Congress people, the president maybe, just because they got our color don't mean they have our interests. And for me, real change is never going to come from Joe Biden or Barack Obama. It has to come from the bottom up.
The people.
It has to come from the bottom up. And so what we should be doing in every waking moment that we have is organizing. Well,
you know, there is a point. You have a point as far as the bottom up. I remember growing up in the 70s, and my grandmom and grandfather and my mom and my aunts and uncles, they had nothing that Capitol Hill did, nothing the White House did,
reached them,
nothing even state legislatures did affected how affected their lives. I mean, the community was the community. I talked recently about my grandmother's garden and how she always gardened, and just us playing in the streets, and they going to work and taking care of us, and there was nothing about what at the federal or state level that they were doing it, whatever laws they were doing, whatever things that they were doing may have been to probably could contributed to oppressing Black people, but we did not feel, and I tell you, they didn't really feel it because we talked about certain things. We didn't talk a whole lot about politics, but it just didn't matter. It was about taking care of home. As Luther Vandross said, a house is not a home, right? But it was about taking care of home and who was at home, and the home was the community, and that was when it was truly
the community,
the village.
Yeah.
That
they were too busy surviving.
Yeah.
Our parents, our grandparents, especially those, well, anywhere, but particularly those who grew up in the South. I'm from, from Miami. On my dad's side, there were 10. On my mom's side, there were 11 siblings. Both of my grandmothers were domestic workers, and my grandfathers, were carpenters. And it was all about survival, making ends meet. My grandmother used to always tell, my dad once said, my grandmother used to always say before she left to, go to work, I'm going to work for the white folk. So I need you all to behave yourselves. I cannot be downtown at the courthouse trying to get you all out of prison while I'm, cleaning for white folks. I mean, that was the reality of for many of our family members who came before us.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because I think about my parents, and they were always entrepreneurial. They had little businesses and that type of thing. But I mean, my parents were like, when you go to college? And I was like, well, what makes you think that I want to go to college? And they were like, Negro, please. They're like, we ain't asking a question because you're going to live better than we did. Mm-hmm. But we're not asking you if you're going to college.
This is not a debate.
Yeah, this is not a debate. And so it is, as you said, they built their communities, they built their villages. And I always keep on thinking that what we're seeing as an outcome of COVID-19 is a realignment and a shift to people beginning to understand that the government is not here to help you. That the things that we're paying out, they're taking a whole lot of our taxes, and we're not getting the requisite return for that investment. And we have to build our communities and take care of each other because the government ain't gonna do it.
Amen. Amen.
Well, listen, Barrington, we are looking forward to your Barrington is going to have a special interview on these networks, Black Press USA. Juan DeMarcos Gonzalez, the band leader, the African Cuban All-Stars, Buena Vista Social Club. You go on and on with Juan DeMarcos Gonzalez. Barrington, if you can give us a little sneak preview of what you guys are going to talk about.
Well, Juan is here in Maryland. He's going to be at the Strathmore tonight in Bethesda at 8:00. He is on tour. He is leaving here. He's going to be going to Bronx to perform. Then he's going to Chicago and Wisconsin and a couple of other places in the Midwest. Juan is, I told him, he's a global treasure. He is longtime musician, founded the Buena Vista Social Club. If you listen to white boys, they try to make it seem as if they're the ones that went to Cuba and pulled these people together. But he's the one, because his uncle, Ruben Gonzalez, famous pianist, and he had other family members who were musicians. He's been playing for 30 plus years. And just a great guy. He's a composer. He has this band that he takes around the world. And proud Black man, always talking about the importance of exporting Cuban music to the world. Because like he said in the interview yesterday, we have cigars, good liquor, and pretty women. We don't have gold or other natural resources, but we have that, and we have our music. So he is like, what do they call him? I think they call him the Quincy Jones of Cuba. That's, so he is, he's a fabulous guy and a good friend.
Awesome. Well, we're looking forward to it. What time, Barrington? What time? Give us some details.
8:00. Tonight.
Oh, tonight.
8 o'clock tonight.
Prime time. Look at
Prime
Austin.
Strathmore.
They put Barrington in prime time.
I know. And we're in Barrington?
Strathmore.
Okay.
It's a concert hall up in Bethesda.
Okay.
And the last time he was here a few years ago, and he had everybody dancing in the aisles.
Nice.
Mike V says Barrington, the Pan-African pessimist.
Exactly.
I'm an Afro pessimist. Yes, it's true. It's true. But I honestly believe that the power and vibrancy of our Africanity is what is going to free us.
Yeah.
So, and I'm a pessimist, but I'm optimistic about our children's future.
Well, tune in at 8 p.m. Tonight, Friday night.
Go get the tickets.
Yeah. And Stacey, before we jump off, if I can just briefly go back to a comment that Brother Barrington made earlier in the show when he referenced the crucifixion of our Lord and Savior. You know, I smiled when I thought about that, because I thought about the crazy political environment that we're in. Now, Barrington, do you remember what Congresswoman Lauren Nutjob Obert said about the crucifixion?
No, I don't.
She said that if our Lord and Savior had an AK-47, there would have been no crucifixion.
Oh, Lord. Okay.
That's the environment that we're in, gentlemen.
Yeah. And that's that, you know, I don't know why we keep on putting our head in the sand and thinking that there's not going to be consequences for that type of thinking.
Yes. Yes.
Because do you remember a few years ago when she had the Christmas card with all of her family members, including children, holding AK-47s.
AK-47s, yeah.
So what we're seeing in response is very important, because you have a lot of Black folks who are learning how to shoot, going to the gun range, getting their weapons.
Well, I tell you, Greer continues to say that violence awaits. It's coming.
Oh yeah, it's coming, because this is what they want. This is what they want. But the thing is that we have got to be like the deacons of defense, who during the civil rights era were the protectors of Dr. King and Stokely Carmichael and the civil rights workers who were coming down south, because they fought with the KKK, the White Citizens Council, and all of these other people who were armed and seeking to kill Black people. And they put some bullets in some asses and had them people running. We got to do that. We can't sit down and wait for Jesus.
You gotta have faith, Barrington. You gotta have faith.
Faith. Okay.
Look, it's a fine concept.
I don't say nothing's wrong with having faith, but you better have a weapon as well.
It's what's that Godfather saying about the gun? It's better a kind word and a gun will get you further than just a kind word.
For sure.
Is that what that did?
Yeah. So faith and a gun will get you much further than faith alone. Because, for all of the stuff that we talked about with Dr. King being nonviolent and preaching that, he didn't tell those men that he didn't want their protection when he was down south. He took their protection.
Well, listen, tune in. We got to run, guys. Tune in to Barrington's Juan DeMarcos Gonzalez interview. Should be a real good one. We will all be checking it out, Barrington. We're looking forward to it. And of course, Austin Cooper, we really appreciate all what you do for Let It Be Known and the Black press in general. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday.